I'm Brian Sparkman, and my hope through this podcast is that those of us in the Black LGBTQ plus community and others find our rightful place on life's journey. So come along to listen, to learn, and to share. Our voices, our journey. More than just letters. Have minorities and almost being Black, brown, LGBTQ plus, double minority, and we still have all the hardships that life is throwing at us. And then also added to that, being young, not having the resources or the knowledge around how to navigate this. I mean, it can really, like the trajectory of your life can really, it can go straight to shit in a lot of instances. So we're not not having people to kind of protect and support that vulnerable population.
Yes.
And for you guys to step in and do that, I mean, that's why I wanted you to be here today.
Thank you. And we've been able to, stand in this space for many young people. We were grassroots at first before 2016 until we got our 501c3. And we've been able to build our capacity to do so much more. And I just recently stopped a young person who's 19 years old, who's HIV positive, who don't have support from their family, but have their own apartment from being evicted. I cut a check to make sure they don't be out on the streets. Those are the type of things that we're looking at to help folks to make sure that they don't be out here just trying to figure out what's going on and how they're going to do. No, we want to say, okay, what do you need? Let's provide that need. We don't want to, and I think the thing is, like, especially how the government works right now up under this administration, you have to almost give a vial of blood and your whole lineage history, about everything about you just to get a little bit of help. And it's still just not enough. And sometimes folks need people to just step in immediately, and sometimes families just can't do it. Love might be there, but they just don't have the resources. And for lack of better words, we're everything for everyone whenever it needs to be.
You have a place in heaven, brother. That's amazing to for someone to be in crisis, I'm sure levels of trauma to possibly be evicted. I was there myself, almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Different circumstances, but just the fear, the uncertainty, the anxiety around that, and then to be able to step in and do that. You said basically being everything for everyone kind of when they need it.
Absolutely.
I love that. So when you started out maybe to where you are now, was that kind of the mission to be a resource for everyone, or are there specific populations that you serve? Do you find that there may be more vulnerable populations within this, or microcosms within this that are maybe HIV, maybe those who are the youth, maybe it's the elderly? Are there specific populations, or really is it just legit for everything, be a resource for everybody whenever they need it?
It's very funny you asked that, right? So my thing, when we first started doing the work, we were like, okay, we're going to strictly be for Black and brown young people from the age of 13 to 24.
Okay.
And then there's this funny concept called arrested development that slapped us in the face. And I'm like, okay, so we want to help you, but we now have to say, how old are you? Like, what if a person is 12 years old, which we know that young people under 12 are identifying LGBTQ. Yes. Some people might feel like they don't know what they're talking about, and if it's true. And then we have folks who are 25 and up. What do we do about that age group of folks? So we had to go back and kind of tweak our mission and our focus and our vision on, like, okay, our community of folks who are Black and brown and LGBTQ, they oftentimes, like you said, are dealing with primary barriers, right? And then how do we address the primary barrier and then all the other things that's happening because they are identifying in the community? We can't be that. We can't be that way. We will be just like the government who says, okay, you want to prove that you need rental assistance? Give us your eviction papers. And then here you are a week before eviction or a week before court, and you're still trying to get them to pay your rent.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Doesn't
if
help.
I need the help, I wouldn't waste my time coming to you to get the help. And I understand that some folks are in a position where they have to track how they're, having expenditures. I get that.
Right.
But for us in our community, we don't have the time. We ain't got the time. So that's why we were like, okay, we're a bit of a fast forward button for our people to make sure that they're not asked out, basically. Because, people lights are threatening to be cut off. Okay, let me go to the light company and put whatever money that you're saying that needs to be on there. Now, if it doesn't get cut off, awesome. That's what we're there for. But if you were just pulling our tail, I'd rather us actually, to a degree, put money out that really didn't need to be put out to make sure that that person got their help, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to take you through some bullshit to prove to me that you need the help. To me, that just don't make sense. Like for us, things ain't always what they look like on the outside.
Absolutely.
But specifically talking about transgender folk, right? Our transgender brothers and sisters, they already endure a lot of shit. And if they're looking for help, nothing looks right and looks the same. Someone can say, okay, are you a commercial sex worker? Because of that, we can't help you. Oh, you got a pimp. Have your pimp to help you. It's all these different ages. I've heard the horror stories when people go and try to access resources and services, and being a citizen who pay taxes and can't get shit. And we can't do that to our people. I don't understand how we don't have any compassion for folk. And that's the thing we really offer to our people. Like, we want to make sure that you're good, and we offer compassion. So if you need help, we'll help you. But if we're being taken advantage of, is really nothing we can do. But we're here to help. We definitely address acute issues and needs. But the other piece of programming that we do is we look at the legislative part of things, like why this shit is happening in the first place. And one thing that we have been trying to combat is the current HIV laws in the state of Tennessee, and how they incriminate every person who has an HIV diagnosis in the state. This law currently states that if a person is HIV positive in that state, I know Tennessee, I'm going to talk about Tennessee specifically because I've been working very closely with it. In Tennessee, if you're an HIV positive person, we are a mandatory reporting state, which means that if you test positive, they have to report it to the local health department. Also, that information is shared with the state health department. If a person files a complaint on you and says that you exposed them to HIV, and this is very loosely interpreted, which means that we can sit down, have a coffee together, we can hold hands. I can take your pencil out of your hand. You can take my pencil out of my hand as you being a positive person. Anything that I can come up with in a complaint to say that you exposed me, I can file a complaint with the police. Sex crimes pick up that complaint, investigate it. The first thing they do is check the health department records. And if you indeed have a HIV diagnosis that's preset that complaint, they come and investigate you. That's a 24 to 72-hour investigation. After that, they have probable cause, which means that your case most likely will go before a judge. Now you have to go to court over this. See, and you have to have the burden of proof as the positive person to prove that you did not expose that person to HIV. Now, the law.
And this wait, I just have to pause because I know there are a lot of people. I know my mind right now is blown.
Yeah.
So there are laws on the books that are literally criminalizing people who have HIV, even in situations where there is no intimate interactions, right? No sexual interactions.
Right.
People can still be demonized and criminalized for having HIV in 2020.
Absolutely. There are over 16,000 people in the state of Tennessee who are HIV positive. Each one of those individuals, if a complaint is filed that they expose someone to HIV, however that's interpreted, they are going to have to at least go through the process of being investigated, going to court to prove that they did not expose someone, and having a burden of proof to say that that person was not exposed. The current law does not interpret if the person is medically adherent to their medicines, which we know now. If a person is taking their HIV medicine, it is virtually impossible to pass on the virus.
Absolutely.
Secondly, being undetectable equals untransmittable. That same point. Thirdly, okay, the medicine today, and then talking about like, okay, that law itself is very
Antiquated. It's antiquated.
yeah, I was it's one antiquated, right? And honestly, it's a bunch of bullshit. I'm trying not to let my
No,
hood
no.
slip out, right?
No,
But
absolutely no.
because it pisses me off. Reason being, I'm not a positive person, but I can only imagine. Oh, I can. We're black in America. We're criminalized, and
Absolutely.
and to think that this is a step further. They put it in legislation. It is a state statute, and it blows my mind. And so, even though we have like the World Health annotation and what it means to define all of this medically around HIV, you have this language that we're part of. Then you have the federal strategy or the national strategy to eradicate HIV, to end the epidemic, that has the language that tells you medically, like, how does this law need to be. And
Amended.
yet, yeah, and
Right.
it really needs to be repealed
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
modernized.
Absolutely.
However, the state of Tennessee, I've been fighting this since 2016, and almost every year, those people who are in elected seats who are most likely Republicans said, I didn't know about this law, nor do I really care.
I think a lot of people out there don't know, aren't aware of this.
Yeah, yeah, but and that's part of the problem. Like the no education. I can't say miseducation. No education. On top of that, Tennessee is really a clusterfuck because we also have the gateway activity law that's been actually put in place in 2012, which says that a medical professional or a person in public health like myself or any of my colleagues can't go into a classroom and teach sexual health. However, you don't teach them how to prevent themselves from having unwanted pregnancies and STIs, but you teach them how to be parents and give them robotic babies and shit. That's bass backwards. And that's how the LGBTQ community gets pulled into it, because with those talks around sexual health, you have to talk about LGBTQ identity. And we can't talk about that in the school system as well as sexual health. And that puts us in a position where now we have leading HIV numbers, according to the national average in Shelby County, which is the greater Memphis area, that contest those numbers. Our HIV numbers are highest with 13 to 24-year-olds here who are Black and also male.
So,
Second,
so
yeah,
I just have to interject.
yeah, it's fine.
So the education can't be provided in schools
Yeah.
when the age range that's being impacted. I think sounds like the majority of them are, maybe middle school to high school aged. So you don't have the resources, and there are people who are trying to kind of navigate this without the proper resources. That it can't be taught in school.
Exactly.
So it's almost like it's like a quicksand effect. It's like you're
Absolutely. And so that's why it's super important why the page does the work that we do. We cover all fronts. We're looking at legislation. We're also looking at acute needs, and we're also trying to make sure that they stay on that level where they can continue to get their education and at least get a high school diploma. And if they want to be a productive person in society, being able to be that individual that they want to be, get some type of certification, and also being able to be a part of the community and not have to be in a situation where they're like, okay, I'm not a part of the LGBT community because I don't deal with them. And it's like, no, it's so many beautiful people in the community who are looking to share love, and they're not mothers and fathers and aunties and uncles. They're just someone who wants to help. And so with us, we're like, okay, we want to make sure that we're there filling those spaces again for those people who are experiencing hardships. And if they're a part of our community, we want to, be a place where you can come in and you can get their help. And we're not faith-based. If you're a part of our community, come in.
saving grace, a saving grace,
Yeah.
literally.
No grace and no mercy is had in none of these agencies and none of the resources that happens around here. And that's why, like, actually the HIV epidemic, not to take it from y'all, lives in the South. And this is the reason why, because the mind frame.
there's a real cause and effect behind it.
Absolutely.
So I mean, just because you know, for myself in talking to you, we've talked, you know, off
Yeah.
mic about several issues affecting uh, Tennessee, Memphis area, and the Black, Brown, LGBTQ plus communities specifically.
Right.
People who are listening, maybe they're not in Memphis, maybe they're
Right.
maybe on the East Coast, maybe they're in New York, maybe they're Los Angeles, maybe they're in London.
Right.
What can people do? How can people listening to this you know, to this show right now? What
Right.
can they do to help an organization like the Page or other organizations? What can they do? How can they
Well,
impact?
there's several things that a person can do, right?
Okay,
I
run them
think
down
the
for us,
first,
please run them down.
yeah. So the first thing, get educated. I know that things are happening in pockets and places across the nation, but specifically with us, we have our website up, thepage.org. That's THEPAIGE.org.
Okay,
Go to our website, see the programming that we're doing, look at the information that we have to offer, and if you feel moved, hit that donate button. My thing is, it does take money to do the work that we do. We do already have like programming that's going on that's been awarded grants to keep some things happening, but we're always looking to do more for the community.
and again, it
And
goes back to, just to interject, it also goes back to some
yeah,
of these cases and vulnerable populations that are being helped.
yeah,
Some of these cases require immediate assistance. So having those donations can help someone with rent, someone who maybe needs medication. You mentioned someone with having a
absolutely.
psychotic break. So there are a lot of instances and opportunities where people are in immediate need of something. So those donations, I mean, I'm sure they can go a long way. So sorry,
Right.
continue, please.
No, 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 you're fine. And my thing is like even talking about sexual health, we have folks who sometimes who don't have the coverage like to be in the Ryan White program, which is kind of like if you're HIV positive, you can be qualified to get into this program that'll pay for your medications. Some folks fall out of that. And and it's always a situation where it's like, okay, you make $42,000 a year, but you're $2,000 over the threshold to be able to get those services. So now you have to pay for your own medication. So what we do, we step in and help those folks get the medication that they would need to stay alive and stay healthy. And also, folks who are needing like clothes and shoes, like when they're trying to have interviews to get jobs, even folks who are trying to maybe put deposits down on rent. There are places, put the deposits down on places to rent, like
Right.
if they're in the application process. We jump in and we help if they are having that need. And usually we follow folks who we are helping and saying, okay, well, we want to make sure we're helping you, but also what's your next step? And so we're always challenging them, and it's a fun thing. It's love. It's all love. But we challenge the folks, okay, so how are you gonna change the world? And let us help you do that. And I've taken several young people from high school age to graduate high school, going through college, being a part of, organizations on campus, doing advocacy work in a community, and being able to, speak for folks on campus who are having, different, hardships
Yeah.
to this very day. One of the HBCUs right now have displaced students, and someone who I mentored or who came through the Page is now fighting to get housing and get those kids in places until the facilities are ready for them because of this COVID thing.
It's
And it's
amazing.
like
That's it's amazing.
if
It's
you see
inspirational.
something, say something, and that's our rule of thumb with folks. If you see something, say something. But if folks want to be down, they want to throw down with us. Y'all can find us at thepage.org. We're on Facebook at the Page 901. Also on Instagram, the same thing, the Page 901. And we not only do all this work. I know it's very heavy and it'll move you,
Yeah.
but we know how to have fun too, and we love on each other and we have a good time. When you can't get
I can
together,
absolutely attest to that. I was there last year for one of the
absolutely.
meetings. So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
so, and I think one of our crown jewels that we have is the conclave. And so that's our initial engagement with a lot of folks where you come in, and we've had folks who come in who are part of every representation of the LGBTQ spectrum and find that they're comfortable there and they can be themselves wholly. They don't have to compartmentalize and be like, oh, well, I'm just going to give you a little bit about me being a student. No, some folks get in there and they're talking about, okay, school ain't working. My mama getting on my nerve. My job is, oh my God, I need more hours at my job. I'm hungry. Okay. And they can eat. as they threw down while you were there too, right? And
We
so
all did. I did.
right, and we have just a good time, and it's all about connecting with folks who look like you and represent. And it's a different representation for everyone in the rainbow, and yeah, it's everything. I love it.
I hope that for people who are listening, that this information that the people that you're being able to kind of impart, for those again who are listening, I hope that people are moved enough to recognize that, again, you mentioned there are things going on in different pockets around the nation, and without that knowledge, without the knowledge, we can't help to maybe empower those who might be in need, maybe those who in need of immediate assistance. So I hope that people, are moved to action, whether that is, sharing this interview with Dewayne, whether that's going to the page.org to donate, whether that's maybe donating their time, maybe resources, maybe donating clothes for interviews. But just really, I hope that people at the end of the day, again, are moved enough by hearing the horrific legislation that's going on that's impacting our community, just to move to be able to do something. So I hope that people listening can really understand why these grassroots organizations helping to impact the lives of the LGBTQ plus community, especially the vulnerable populations, Black, Brown, transgender folks, HIV, that they understand why this matters, why this is important. Well, Dewayne, you've shared a lot of information. We're going to put some links and some resources that people can reach out and connect and contact you. I would love to, brother. You're my boy. You're my dog.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
love to have you come back on. Maybe open this conversation up a little bit more, and hopefully people,
yeah,
maybe reach out, have questions for you specifically about some of your initiatives, things
yeah.
you've done, maybe ways that they can maybe augment your platform. So, I mean, bro, I can call, and maybe I'll send some Louisiana red hot, sauce,
See,
something to kind of bribe you to come.
that's all I'm saying. If you see something, say something. I need Louisiana hot sauce over here.
If you see something, say something. Hey, Dewayne, it's been a genuine pleasure, brother. Thank you very much for your time, all of the amazing work that you're doing. I'm
Thank you.
sure this will change so many people's lives. It has changed and will continue to do so. Thank you very much again, brother. Our voices, our journey, more than just letters. Thank you for tuning in.